Hi, everyone. Welcome again to our last Complete College America webinar of the semester. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like to thank my Complete College America colleague, Nisi Fairfax, for putting all of these sessions together for us. It's been a great experience, and we've had a lot of great information shared. Today, I would like to welcome Miss Christie Roberts, the Senior Project Manager for Enrollment Management at Texas A&M University Corpus Christi, and she will be talking about smart schedules. So take it away, Christie.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is, as was mentioned, my name is Christie Roberts, and I am the Senior Project Manager for Enrollment Management here at Texas A&M University Corpus Christi. I am fairly new into this role. I'm 3 weeks in, and so as you can imagine, you're probably thinking, well, Christie, it says Associate Registrar, and that is where I've spent the majority of my career. All of my career is in the Registrar's office, and so I recently made the transition I accepted this opportunity to be a part of enrollment management, but I was with the registrar's office for 17 years. And as part of the associate registrar role, I did oversee end-to-end course schedule building, which was my favorite thing about my job. And I love to talk about it and all the different components that it touches. And I really believe that student scheduling and end-to-end scheduling is the foundation for student success. It drives everything for students. It drives what they're going to need to get their path towards degree. So I'm blessed to be a part of it. I also oversaw the athletic and academic certifications, as well as I got oversaw and created the DegreeWorks scribe team. We inherited the scribe responsibilities in 2018, and so it went from scribing. If you are unfamiliar or familiar with DegreeWorks Scribe, it's our DegreeWorks audit system. And so scribing our degree plans, we went from having 20 scribers to 3, and so working to see how all that looked. And it was a perfect opportunity to bridge the gap. And I always said we were on a journey, for a very long journey, and we were still on the journey of making sure what was in our SIS matched what was in our on course schedule, in our catalog, and on our degree work. So it really helped bridge and understand the whys of a bunch of different processes that we're going to go through today. As mentioned, I do have 17 years. It was my first job, right? I can say that now that I'm in another job. It was my first job right out of college. And as you can tell, I really enjoyed being there. And I think that I was able to accomplish some wonderful things with some amazing people, because we don't do it alone. And I'll say, during this presentation, I might say but it really was not just me. I'm just grateful to work with a lot of different people across campus, and we made a beautiful music happen. So, and I'm also grateful to be a TAMU CC alumni. I graduated in 2006 with my bachelor's degree in marketing. So a little bit about Texas A&M University Corpus Christi. We are part of the Texas A&M system, which includes 11 universities and 8 state agencies. We have a student population that hovers between 9,500 and 10,000. We reached a little bit higher than 10,000 this past fall. We are a Hispanic serving institution as well as a minority serving institution. We are a D1 athletics. We have a part of our scheduling processes revolve a lot around our Ad Astra products that we utilize. We are a banner school, and so we use Banner and DegreeWorks, which we'll go into a little bit in detail in just a second, as well as the different Ad Astra products that we use, because I do believe that it is the backbone of our scheduling process. Culturally, the island is the only island in the university that it's its own island. So our entire island is a university. And so we're located on Ward Island, and we are along the Gulf of Mexico. And it is a pretty awesome place to work, to go to school, to live. I can wholeheartedly say it was hard to go to school. And it's sometimes hard to go to work. I'm blessed with an amazing view in my new office, and right now it's just beautiful. I think it's 78, sunny. It's not that humid. And so it is definitely a great day to have a great day when you get to work on the island. And so we're blessed with an amazing president who is so supportive of all of our initiatives that we want to take on, any type of scheduling I like to say adventures. We've always been blessed, and we have a provost who's fairly new, but she is not new to our campus, and so she has been amazingly supportive through this through our scheduling, because we are moving towards an annual schedule. So we definitely are appreciative of the top down leadership that we do have at the university. So part of the registrar's office, I like to talk about that while I'm the bulk of what I am going to talk about is course scheduling and course registration, but we are much more than that. The registrar's office is a central hub of scheduling, registration, verifications, degree planning, commencement, graduation, all of those amazing things. And so we understand that with great power comes great responsibility. And so we always are working towards a better tomorrow. I have a family motto of know better, be better, do better. And I've taken that motto in everything that I am able to be a part of. And I think the registrar's office really does embody that motto as well. We are always ever changing. We know the higher ed landscape, it can be a whirlwind, it can be the best of days, and it can be the worst of days. But at the end of the day, I always say everyone wants somebody who worked in the registrar's office, because we touch so many different processes, and making that streamlined for students, I think, is important. We also, as I guess in higher ed, sometimes like to make things a little bit more complicated, not by fault, just by the way, with policies and laws and all that fun stuff. And so really helping the students understand and reducing those barriers is something that our institution is always looking to be better at. So some of the technologies that we utilize, and I have mentioned them already, Banner, that is our student information system. So we are a Banner school. We'll go through the different Ad Astra solutions that we utilize and what they do. Our reporting system that we use for our SIS is Argos. Our degree auditing system is DegreeWorks. All of our registrar forms are in DocuSign. So we have standardized all of our forms into electronic format. We are in the process of working with our IT to put them into Laserfish form so that it can we can use that automated feature within Banner. However, that does take more offices than ours, and so DocuSign is currently what we use, and we have a fully routable forms that go through and go to different people in our office, process, and then go into our repository, which is Laserfish. And so we're always looking to make that better. We are a parchment school, so we send electronic transcripts as well as printing our transcripts through parchment. And as of, I believe, last year, we started printing our diplomas because we were a DoD school, but Parchment acquired them. So now we print our diplomas through them. We do print all of our diplomas in-house. So we are a jack of all trades. And I like to say all of this that we do, and much more than I'm explaining right now, but we do it with a team of 12 or 13, and we recently increased to 15 because our office inherited the catalog as well as graduate compliance. So the registrar's office, I apologize for saying I was part of them for so long. We are a growing office who are always just looking for ways to help our students and eliminate those barriers. So talking a little bit about our scheduling process, because that is what we will be talking about today. And so this is how our scheduling timeline looked before we embarked on the journey of annual scheduling. So I like to call it the land before time. And this was and I'm a millennial, so it resonates with me, that title, but really going through, and we scheduled our courses we scheduled for spring, we scheduled that in the fall. And in spring, we scheduled for summer and fall. And so really looking at this, it always kicked off at the best time possible, which was on the first day of classes. And we roll our schedule from like term to like term. So what we would do is we would roll our schedule, we null out the max enrollment and the building, which I'll get into a little bit later. And then we let departments get to work. And so when we have I like to say a centralized, decentralized scheduling process, meaning we oversee it and we troubleshoot and we We make sure people are crossing their T's and dotting their I's, but the departments are the ones that are creating their schedule. They're the ones at the course times that need to be offered with our guidance and the wonderful analytics that we provide, and they're able to go pull on their own, but they're the ones that are creating those, and we guide them. For if we have a special initiative, example, dual credit, we have where do our online only programs, or if we have any other sort of special initiative in which it's going to affect a subset of students, then our office will take the lead on the course building it all. But we always have the mindset of the departments own their courses. They are the subject matter experts. And so working along, and sometimes we serve as more of a nudger and as a cheerleader to say, these classes, you might need to offer another section of this course because of X, Y, and Z. And we'll get into that a little bit later. So as we're doing that, they have about 3 or 4 weeks. Sometimes actually probably they have about 6 weeks on a great semester. They have 8 weeks of really good schedule building. And then we have what we call a hands-off period. And that's when we schedule our classrooms. So if anybody is still building for their online courses, they can continue to work on that. And then we have a period called room shopping, which room shopping used to be the bane of my existence, but it's gotten a little bit better. And that is we go in and we schedule all our rooms, and we'll go through that. But then departments had the ability to go and change our work. So I still remember the very first time I scheduled, I was 8 months pregnant, because that's when I inherited scheduling, and just really working and scheduling everything perfect. I remember saying I was going to leave my desk. I got home. I was like, everything's great. I finished in a day. And then I sent, all the wonderful email out. And I just remember getting this email from this chair just laying into me saying, I scheduled the courses wrong in the wrong rooms, and how could I do this, and all this wonderful stuff, and they were going to fix it all in room shopping. And it was a great first lesson, and really a great way to get that tough skin. And so, but now we have our room shopping, and it's really just to grab any rooms that maybe they built during our hands-off period. There are some times when they do need to move their classrooms, but we are still reviewing those. So it's become a little bit less of a pain point and more of I like to think of an active way to engage with constituents, if you will. So after we schedule build, our courses are then viewable on what we call SAIL. And so that is our internal external schedule. We are on Banner self-service. And if anyone's a Banner school, we are currently in the transition to Banner 9 self-service. And so our Banner 8 self-service, this is when it's viewable for our students as well as on an external schedule. And then 2 weeks after that, the registration process begins. So it is something that does take up a good majority of your semester. So when we started talking about annual scheduling, the big question for me was how. So I know the importance of annual scheduling and why we need to do it, but I wanted to know the how. And I knew that when at the end of the day, that's what the departments ultimately wanted to know after they got over the initial shock of annual scheduling, but they wanted to know, how are we going to do this? And so the first thing was we updated our timeline, and this was an actual timeline of the spring 25 semester. So as you can see, the approach that we took was of a progressive build. So instead of saying you need to build your courses, we're going to do an annual scheduling. You're going to build for summer of 25 all the way to summer of 26, and you're going to adhere to the same deadlines. And I knew that wasn't going to work. And so when we started these planning meetings with the provost, I talked about this progressive build. So you build summer 1. Let's just focus on summer 1. You build it, you get all the necessary details. You're good to go, and then let us schedule the rooms for summer and fall, and then you start with for summer, and then the departments will start building for fall. And then after they had about a month or a month and a half to do that, and then they can start working on summer of 26. And so on and so on. Concern our provost did have at the time was the idea of annual scheduling is that you are creating a schedule for students a year in advance, and you're looking at the courses that you've offered the previous semester and the semesters before that, and the registration behaviors. And so while you typically might have offered a course every odd year in the spring, if there were situations where maybe Christy and her whole cohort dropped this class for whatever reason, and you typically don't offer it this spring, but maybe you need to, reviewing those registration behaviors and being able to adapt your schedule instead of creating a schedule during that time and all the nuances that come along, that you've created a draft schedule and that you are plugging in, taking out as you go along. And so, as you know, we are on April 16th. And so we are coming up on our first deadline. The deadlines have been adjusted a little bit from my departure, but I do know that they're going to continue to build on the momentum. We did and I'll go into the meetings that we've had and the planning that went into the annual scheduling. And a big thing was department said, we cannot plan our schedule for summer and spring of 26. That is too far in advance. Our schedules are dependent on GAs who will need to have a full load in fall. And I remember we met and the art department came with 6 pages front and back of reasons why they could not do annual scheduling. And I did read it, but after the meeting, after talking through, looking and saying, okay, we want to schedule for students to see a year in advance. They don't necessarily need to know the days and times and the who's teaching it in summer of 25 for summer of 26, but they do want to know this course is being offered so that if I need to take another course in my pathway, I'm going to be okay. Because we have, when students meet with their advisors, we have a robust advising department who know the ins and outs of their course rotations, like a good advising unit should. And so they might tell the students, oh, just wait until next semester, they're going to offer it. So that's what the student does, is they wait. They wait for this course to be offered because their advisor told them it's going to be offered next semester. Then registration comes around or the schedule is viewable and the schedule's not there. The student knows their advisor wouldn't lie to them, right? They weren't lying. So they're just going to wait till that next semester. And unfortunately, that is a real story that the provost did tell during our initial annual scheduling meeting. And it's really understanding that, yes, we do have rotations. Yes, we do have the reasons of why this is offered, faculty resources, but sometimes student registration behaviors do not align with that. And so it's understanding and making sure that we have the right courses with our students that align with their pathways, graduation plans, and all the great stuff that goes into scheduling ahead of time. We asked the departments to provide a draft of a schedule, and that was a little bit of a pain point for them because in their timeline of working on things, they're still working on the class schedule when the draft was due. And so what we were able to utilize some of the Ad Astra tools, and I was able to create a draft of a schedule for spring and summer, include the average section size, as well as showing the predicted demand of the number of courses and the number of sections for those courses. And so being able to do that and show them that lift isn't that heavy, it's just really going in there and saying, okay, this is what we've offered in spring of 25. This is what we're offering right now. We've rolled our schedule. So having that process of giving them a template and saying yes, no, is the direction our provost would like to go to. I remember when we first started talking about this, our provost was like, Christy, what do you think if we had a department or somebody that creates a course schedule for them based on all these analytics, and then they have to tell you why they're not going to offer the course or why they would need to offer another course. And and in my head, I'm like, theoretically, that would be pretty cool. But then mentally, I'm thinking like, okay, well, who's going to be that person? It's going to be me. And who's going to be filtering all those wonderful emails? Me. Who's going to be, and understanding that they are the subject matter expert. They are the content matter experts. And so understanding and working together to say, okay, this is what I've typically offered, but student behaviors show us differently. And being adjustable, I think, is pivotal when creating your schedule. I know that everybody hates the word pivot now from COVID, but I do feel like a positive that came out of a COVID era was the ability to pivot, was the ability to say, we've done this. This is how we've always done it, which I cannot stand those words, but this is how we've always done it. And it allowed us to understand, like, we can't do it that way. So let's try another way. And I do think that it has helped in this process. But I know that when we've talked about annual scheduling, it's not so much of it being this big scary monster, but it's the how are we going to do it? How am I going to use the resources that I have one or two people that are schedule building for my department, but they have also, that's like 25% of their job. And if that, how are they going to manage all of that? So, this is a great segue to talk about how they manage all that and how we have empowered them to hopefully make their lives a little bit easier and answer those questions. Because I do believe when we have decided to make the change. So, for example, when we decided to start using analytics, we were rolling over our max enrollment, and that was one of the first things. And for me, I was like, the easiest way to eliminate was the max enrollment, because that forced the departments to go and review the data and make those data-driven decisions. So how we do that is we use three products when we are scheduling, four if you include Banner, and that is the student demand forecasting, the registration monitoring, and then academic scheduling. So, but when we kick off our course scheduling process, we start off with a wonderful training. And I say it's wonderful. My two colleagues on here might say a little bit differently. It is a very long training because we go and it is the nitty gritty of how to go in and pull information, how to know what the information is, if it's right, as well as building all of our courses. And so it's a lot. It's 96 slides. I talk for 2.5 hours. I don't even like the sound of my own voice when I am done, but it is pivotal. And so we created this course building checklist. And so this allows departments to know at their fingertips, what are the main components of schedule building? What are the forms? What is the basic information that I need to make sure that it is good to go before I even go check anything else? And so we have this checklist. It assists departments. It outlines everything they need to know, a part of terms, making sure that they match with the sessions. If they have any type of reporting issues, all the little things that we see are on this checklist. I also put a QR code on it so that it links them to the different softwares that we use, such as Ad Astra. So it links them, because that was another thing I heard, as I can't figure out how to log in. So I like to make things as easy as possible. When you have two little boys who will find any reason to give you an excuse, I have that mentality for a lot of different things. And so I try to make things as easy as possible for people, because it's already a complicated process itself. And so we want to make the things that we can make not complicated, that we do. So as mentioned before, we utilize the student demand forecasting, the academic scheduling component, and the registration monitoring of Ad Astra. So this allows us to make those data-driven decisions, not only analytically for courses of the how many sections and seats, but also our classroom resources. As mentioned before, we are on an island, so we do not have a lot of space to move, and the spaces that we do have to grow and build buildings are parking lots, so we don't even have a lot of parking sometimes, and we can't exactly go higher either, because we are located next to a naval station air base. So we need to make sure that we are utilizing our buildings effectively and efficiently. Part of utilizing all these tools is the creation of a strategic scheduling team. And this strategic scheduling team is comprised of associate deans, senior advisors, as well as directors of student success, our scheduling team, the provost, and the associate provost. And this allows us to meet, talk about the data, talk about the different scheduling, I don't like to say scheduling issues, but scheduling issues that are arising, and then really having them be your teammates and I like to say, cheerleaders out into our campus community, to get them on board to say, the scheduling team isn't just telling you what and when to schedule, because that's something that we did hear a lot when we took over for scheduling our classrooms. People were worried or scared that I was going to put them in a basement, which we don't even have basements, but I feel like that's what their main concern was. Then when we brought in the analytics portion, departments were worried that we were going to tell them what to teach, when to teach, and we wanted everyone to know these are tools. And I always look at it, these are my toys, and I want you to play with my toys. I want you to even break my toys so that we can figure out how to make this work best. And that is something that I have learned from working with Ad Astra. Is I remember talking to looking at our data, and Laura Kelly, the Mad Asher, if you've ever worked with her, she said, I want you to lean into the data that doesn't look right. The data, instead of just saying like it's wrong, let's lean in to figure out why it's wrong. And that's one of the things that when we're meeting with the departments, we express that you are the subject matter experts. And I've said it probably about 5 times already, and we're 20 minutes in. They are the subject matter experts, and we're just helping them take all that wonderful information and bridge it with what students need. And if it looks wrong, it's technology. Sometimes it is wrong, and we just need to go in there and figure out how can we make it better. So talking a little bit more about the student demand forecasting, which is the predictive analytics piece. We utilize this from a very high level. So from a administrative standpoint, we are able to look at the different courses. What it does is it looks at your schedule, what you're offering, how many sections, how many seats, and then it gives us a needed of how many sections and seats that you need. So at a very high level view, you can see, accounting 2301, it's being offered at 20 sections with 30 seats apiece, but you're historically and predictively, you need to maybe offer 30 sections at 25 seats apiece. And how does that look? And so being able to see high level and then diving into the course, you're able to look at how was this course offered historically by modality, by campus, and we have we have one main campus, and we have one satellite campus that only our College of Business utilizes. So what we've done is we've broken out our campuses into different subsets of students. So we have our traditional main campus students, we have our online only students, we have our dual credit students, we have our RELIS students. And so we're able to either see high level, does that affect all students, or which type of student population do I want to dive into? We're also able to create filters for departments, so they just log in and they're able to see all of their courses. They can even dive in. You can look at course by courses, you can look at it by sections, and then you can even overlay it by students. And so you're able to go in, and this has also helped us with the analytical piece of ensuring that our pathways are always aligned, because what typically happens when they see and they're like, Christy, you told me if it was wrong to tell you this is wrong. And so when we go and we dive in deeper, we realize, okay, this was a course that is newly offered, and now it's part of the accounting pathway, but they didn't update their pathway or their course sequencing. And so we had no way of being able to track that. And so we are able now to review those and ensuring that our pathway health is strong versus having it somewhat working, somewhat not. And so you're able to look at it. We look at the last 5 terms historically, and then we look to see how did it fill up. Right. So if we said you offered 90 seats, did you really fill it up to 90, or maybe you filled it up to 80? And that was one of the very first things when we decided to null out the max enrollment. I had gone to my very first scheduling conference, and they were talking about departments putting their enrollments, their max enrollments, at a number just to get certain rooms. And as naive 29-year-old Christy thought that there was no way that A&M Corpus was doing this, she was completely wrong. They were doing it. And so nulling it out allowed us to see who was adding these max enrollments just because that's how they've always done it, or they wanted a certain room, or who was really looking at their enrollments and looking at the data to make those data-driven decisions. And when we're looking at these, we tell departments, okay, I understand if you're not, Christy, this isn't right. I'm just going to go with what we historically have, or what I've always done. And so I say, okay, well, let's do that. But if there is a higher demand for it, let's set it at the max enrollment that you feel comfortable, but then let's monitor it during the registration process. And we'll talk about that in just a second, about how we can see, is that course filling up 2 days after registration begins. And if that's the case, then we need to make those those decisions to make action on those courses sooner than later. You can also dive in and look at the student optimization, and you can look at the heat map. It provides a heat map of when, if you were to offer this course, when is a student more likely to take it? We have, you probably have the same, I don't want to say issues on your campus, but 9:30 to 10:45 on a Tuesday, Thursday is the most popular time block in our standard time blocks. And we have the also probably about 9:30 to about 1:30 on a Tuesday and Thursday is completely full. And we have all of our classrooms being utilized, all of our labs being utilized. And so we're able to say, okay, if you're going to offer a new section, let's look at the students that are going to need to take this class, and what is the possibility that they'll be able to take it. If you're offering it at 9:30 to 10:45, it's not very strong because they have 5 other classes that they might need to take during that time period. We've also utilized this to be able to offer more terms in our shortened part of term. So in our long traditional term, so we have our long term that runs 16 weeks. And then we also have 2 parts of terms that run within that long term. So we have our T term, which runs the first 7.5 weeks, and then our S term. And then we have our T term, which runs the second 7.5 weeks. And so that 7.5 week, our course offerings are much less than what we offer at the beginning. And so what we did is we looked at students that had a certain number of GPA, I think it was a 3.0, that were taking 12 hours and had room to add another course to their schedule, and then looked to see what course was generating the most demand for these students that was next in their pathway. They were freshman students or they were sophomore students, so we knew we could offer another core course. And we offered about 20 new courses based on that, and they all filled up that semester. And while we didn't continue that because that was fall of 2019, so you know what maybe would have happened in the next coming years. And so, but we do utilize that, and it's a way to also do some target marketing. If the courses, conversely, I've talked about if courses fill up, making sure you're adding more. But conversely, if courses aren't filling up, and that's what we would hear too, is the courses fill up closer to when school begins. And I'll show you on monitor, you can see if they are filling up and when it does fill up. And if it typically didn't fill up closer to when school happens, in fact, it never fills up. And so it historically was canceled more often than not during that semester. So you're able to go in and pull that information and mean what you say and say what you mean. So after courses or departments build their courses, our office schedules the courses, and we do that through Ad Astra Schedule, and we use what their product is called the Optimizer. And at the minimum, the Optimizer allows you to mass schedule your courses. So in any given term, not any given term, for fall and spring terms, we are scheduling about 4,000 sections, and in the summer it's about 1,500. And we have 2 summer terms. And so I still meet people that are, and if you are manually scheduling, I will keep you in my happy thoughts and good vibes, because scheduling manually on Excel sheets, I can't even wrap my head around it. And I'm an Excel lover, so I know the importance and the amount of work that goes into scheduling. So at the minimum, it is a mass scheduler. And what it does is it looks at what I call course preferences. And these aren't preferences where I want an ocean view room, but more of preferences of I need movable tables and chairs because this is how I need to teach my class. And so we work with the departments and ensure that their preferences are set at a pedagogical level. When I first took over the history department, came and was like, Christy, if you can fix one thing, can you please help me fix why my history courses never get rooms and I have to change the time? Why is that happening? Well, when we're looking at their preference rules, they basically said these history courses could only be in 3 different rooms. Out of the 60 rooms on our campus, they only wanted to be in 3. And in those 3 rooms, they were offering history 7 of the exact same history section at the exact same time. So If we were to be able to schedule all of those courses into those 3 rooms, 4 of those automatically wouldn't have gotten a room. And then coupling that with if the 2 of those rooms were a priority for our learning communities at the time, so they were getting they would schedule first, so that automatically took them down to 1 room. And so helping departments understand that we know faculty like one particular room, but maybe opening it up and opening your eyes and horizons, another positive thing of COVID, allowed us to be able to go into rooms and teach in places that we typically wouldn't have taught, but they realized, oh, wow, this is a pretty great room. And with the help of IT and partnering with them, we have standardized all of the technology in all of our general classrooms. So anything that is considered a classroom is maintained by IT, their technology, and they're there to assist in any issue needed, and then scheduled by the registrar's office. And if that meets those 2 criteria, that means any department can schedule it. Any department can put their courses in there. And we have different regions in which departments own their rooms. And I use that term own very loosely because that was one of the very first things that we did, was do a room inventory and looking at our classrooms to see how are they scheduled, or do we have them coded correctly? Because in the state of Texas, the wonderful state of Texas, they grade all public institution, all 4-year public institution on how well they utilize their classrooms. And so what they do that by is with the SU score. And the SU score is a wonderful score in which they look at our demand, our utilization, and our percent fill. And I always say, lucky for us, that demand and utilization, we do fine with that because it's a complicated formula. But with percent fill is where we fall short, which is good for us because it's an easy way to track and ensure that we can, fix that. I say fix that, but we're able to fix it a little bit easier than we would the demand and utilization. And that looks at the straight average of how your rooms are filling. So the optimizer allows us to take those preferences for departments. So if they need to have those movable tables and chairs, if they need to be in a computer lab, or if they need to be in X, Y, and Z, we're able to put all that in. And then we do what I call progressive optimization. You might notice that I really like that word, progressive optimizations. And I start with 100% seat fill. And so going in there and scheduling it, and what the optimizer does is it looks and it says, okay, let's schedule everything, look at the preferences, look at the seat fill, and then let's schedule the courses. And so what it does is then it looks at it, it runs, it takes about 30 seconds to schedule. This is a great screenshot. So this took 30 seconds and it scheduled 899 sections within 30 seconds. And before we were on the cloud, and this was probably 10 years ago, 10 years ago, we had a server on our campus, and it would take about 30 minutes and to do it, to just run one optimization. So I started early in the morning because I go from 100% all the way to 65%, because that 65% is the average percent fill that we have to minimum meet. And so now, or when we went on the cloud, each run takes about 30 seconds. And so running that. And then we're also able to diagnose too. So once we run it, it's going to say, these are the ones that are scheduled. Or do these look good? Then we're able to publish them. But I'm also able to go in there and look at the bottleneck sections. Which sections are competing against each other? What are the infeasible sections? If they're saying this one has to be in this room, but for whatever reason, it's not able to be scheduled, and it tells me those. It tells me those bottleneck times, which help on the other side is when we're done scheduling and we have those happy constituents that didn't get a room or want to know the whys, we're able to provide that. And so this helps us schedule our classrooms effectively and efficiently. We get the perfect SU score is a 200. You have to be at least at 150 to be in compliance. And when our office took over, we had a score of 99, and it is a scaled score. And ours was a 99, and I'm super competitive. And so, but just doing a few little checks here and here with making sure our classrooms are actually coded as classrooms, making sure that we're actually utilizing it effectively and efficiently. We're not putting a 20-seat lecture course into a 365-seat lecture hall because that's the faculty's favorite room, but really understanding it and having those conversations with that strategic scheduling team helped bridge that gap. And I always like to say, English does not own those rooms. Dr. Miller, our president, owns those rooms. Greg Abbott, our governor, owns those rooms. And understanding that we're just guiding, we're just using all of these, and we're all in this together has really helped ease a lot of the people that are upset. So after we schedule all of our classes, we are now monitoring our registration, and we use registration monitoring to do that. And that's actually the phase that we are in now. So what this does is it's on the same platform as Align, so it helps departments bridge that gap of easeability, and we're able to look at courses and get notifications for those courses. And I realized, and I knew this, that we were doing this on a manual level. We have a external schedule that you don't have to log in to our SIS to view, and so you're able to see it, and it's a custom web page that our IT maintains with a lot of extra coding. And it'll show, you put in these filters and it'll show you like red filled up, yellow's almost, and then if it's nothing's on there, that means it's a good course. And while people do utilize this, the monitoring allows you to go in, couple your courses, you're able to see the enrollment progression, you're able to see the enrollment ratio is how is this course filling up? You're able to set up notifications to say, let me know when this course fills up a little higher, because I want to make those actionable changes sooner than later. As mentioned before, we have the enrollment progression of when courses typically filled up. Last week, when I was doing the same presentation in Seattle, it was the first day of registration, and we were able to look at a course that filled up. We were 2 hours into registration, and there was a course that had about 10 courses that had filled up, and it was all graduate courses that filled up. And coupling that, going back and looking and saying, okay, this was an addition candidate, this is something we told the department, you might need to add more seats than you're currently offering, but let's hold off on that because they are computer science and they have all the amazing data as well. But if you want to offer it how you've always offered it, let's do that, but let's monitor the registration, hoping that I wouldn't have to bite my tongue. And luckily I don't. And we were able to show them that this course is generating a lot of demand. This course is full, and it filled up 2 days after registration begins. So this is something that you are going to need to maybe look into because we're continually admitting students. So if they are coming in, they're going to need their courses, and they're already full before even new admits have the chance to get it. So you're able to look at the adjustments. We're able to see, real time. You're able to tag in people. I talked a little bit about our provost being new, and this summer she was our interim provost, and she really dove into registration monitoring and the student demand forecasting, and looking at it and understanding and doing those cross compare to say, this was an addition candidate, why didn't they add more sections or more seats? And then looking how it filled up. So it's almost that buy-in that we need, right? So I can say all day long, even though it's historical and it did happen, people do have that doubt, and they of, I can do it better. You told me I'm the subject matter expert, Christy. Why are you telling me how to schedule? And so really looking through and saying, okay, this is what we recommend, this is what you did, but look at the result, look at the student trend behaviors, and understanding that so that you can make that enhanced decision making, so that you align with the different things. And I've talked a lot about adding, but it's also that canceling of courses, to say, okay, this course, the term is going to start in a month, and we have 2 people in this section. Are we going to cancel this course? Because if we are, those 2 students still need to find another course to replace that, so they don't fall behind in their path towards degree. And being able to do that and show them data has really helped the entire process. And I really believe that the schedule is the foundation for students to be able to achieve their dreams. And as corny as that may sound, I really believe that is how they achieve their dreams. They have the courses they need. And so being able to help departments understand, when we were doing our degree works team, when we implemented that, we implemented SEP, which is a student education planner. And part of that was getting the graduation plans. And I've used those terms interchangeably, of graduation plans, pathways, course sequencing. And I remember sitting across the table with the assistant registrar at the time, talking to these departments, and very scholarly people that are much smarter than I will ever could be looked at me and said, why do we need this plan? Students don't need this. Students don't want this. You're just making us do extra work. And I looked back and I said, they do want it. We need it. You need it. We need it. And more importantly, the students need it. They want to know from A to Z what it's going to take to get their degree, because either they're coming in as a freshman or freshman right out of high school, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to conquer the world, or they're coming in as a millennial wishing that they would have paid attention in college more, but now they're here and they want to know what they need to do to get out as quickly as possible. And so being able to do that and show from A to Z how we are going to accomplish that. And so this now continuing the shift of an annual scheduling and being able to show that for course availability, going through this and saying it's not just something that you pull out every semester to schedule. Let's do the bulk of the work at the beginning and then let's massage it. Let's be those subject matter experts that drew you into the field in the beginning. And let's help students achieve their dreams by constantly, not constantly, but continuously looking at the course fills, looking at the students that are on your wait list. Do you need to make adjustments then? Looking at, are we giving the students the opportunity to have a full-time schedule so that they can do it without conflicts? And then that other piece is also the faculty and departmental, looking at making sure that we're scheduling things effectively, that, like I said before, it is just a little component of their job. And so being able to give them the tools that they need so they can do it effectively and efficiently it just bridges the gap all the way through. So looking at where we're going in the future, we are, like I said, going towards Banner 9 self-service. We are in the middle of an implementation of that, looking at making sure that everyone has the right information. As mentioned before, I look at this as these are my toys and I want you to play with them. What we did is we had meetings that we kicked off in December, where we met with all of the departments and department chairs, program coordinators, and with the provost. There were 13 meetings that lasted about 3 days. Maybe don't recommend that format of the timings, but it was worth it. And what we did is we kicked it off with a pathway exercise. I pulled a pathway from each of the departments that they have for a particular program. And then I asked them to create a schedule. And so this was in the end of fall of 24. And I said, make a schedule as if I'm a student that was just admitted today, that I'm going to need to take classes for spring of 25. And the only restriction is I needed to make sure I had 12 hours of full load. And so looking at the pathway of, okay, these are the courses they said I needed in my second year or my second semester of my freshman year, of looking at those courses and then seeing if those courses were available. And out of the 25 departments that we met with, only 2 departments had a schedule that it was easy for me to just go with, because I had done them. I even did them with my 6th grader who knows how to plug in numbers and could read it, and looked at the schedule just to see the usability of it all. He was able to figure it out, but then he told me, he's like, Mom, this is kind of hard to find classes. Like they say that they're going to offer, but they don't, but it's not on the schedule. Am I looking at it wrong? And I was like, no, you're not. And so, but it was a good catalyst to say, if my 6th grader can find the schedule, but also know that there's not those courses that are needed, I think it was a big eye opener. And also for them to do the exercise to themselves, to say, okay, I might have, in this pathway, it says I need English 1302, 1311, biology 2401, and poli-sci 2306. And most of the time, those courses were already full because those were our core courses. And so looking through that and understanding and talking with them really was I want to believe that is the reason I think that launching annual scheduling it hasn't been without its challenges, but it was an easier lift. And as mentioned before, our department came in with a 6-page document of why it was not going to work. And after we, talking through the why, we were able to talk this together and help them understand that we are all a team. We're all here for our students. I might be with the registrar's office. I'm in enrollment management now, but the need is still the same. When the students that are coming in, they're going to need a schedule. And so they're going to need their courses, and they're going to need particular courses because that's their path towards degree. And so as we grow, we're going to need to evolve and make sure that our scheduling conflicts aren't there for students. So if liberal arts is offering English 1302 at the same time biology 2402, which is a gateway course for our science and our nursing students, if they're offering it at the same time and it's conflicting, what is the student going to know? I need to pick this one now because they're not going to offer that one until next fall, where this is a core course, so maybe they'll offer it instead. And it allows them to make those decisions. It allows advisors to advise and do that intrusive advising and have those meaningful conversations instead of just spending the time finding courses and just the administrative work. But as mentioned before, it has not been without changes. And I think me leaving might have something to do with those challenges, but I don't want it to. I'm not just a person, but everything else in the registrar's office is still flowing great. And so just understanding the why and knowing that this is the why and this is the how you're going to do it, because we get lost we know the why. We're all here to help our students, but then sometimes we forget about the how. How can we make this happen? And so working through that, we will adjust our processes. We'll adjust, can we do this all in-house, or do we need another product that's going to help us overlay it to see cross-divisionally, cross colleges when you're offering your schedule and who is viewing those. So a little bit about the meeting that I talked about. It was with the provost, and the deans were there as more of a support system of this is what we're going to do. And so that the department chairs knew and the program chairs, we were all on that same page. We looked at and we listened to them. We took notes. We said, okay, tell us about scheduling. Like, what is your issue with scheduling? Like, what are your pain points and how can we make it better? I joked that I told my husband, I was like, I'm going to need to remember if I'm in therapy in a couple of years that I ask people to tell me why my toys were bad, and then diving in. And so, but it really helped us understand how and when the departments are utilizing this. And as mentioned before, the pathway exercise was phenomenal. I was able to be a part of that this summer at the ASCU meeting, and just being there and seeing people, provosts, AVPs, VPs, directors of advising, all going through trying to come up with the schedule and realizing like this is what students are doing. This is the frustration that goes along with it, on top of what they probably are dealing with in the world and in college in general. We want to make the schedule the least likely of their problems. And so continually looking to see how we can be better, and knowing that it's always a great day to have a great day when we're all on the same page and we're all working on the common goal of helping students succeed and getting those questions and just being the best version of ourselves. And I believe I am at the end. I hope I have not talked too fast. Scheduling is one of my most favorite things to talk about. And I was talking to Macy and Jennifer before this, and I was telling them that probably the one thing that was not kept me or wanting me to not take this new opportunity was scheduling, and just the amazing opportunities, the amazing people, the things that it's done for my career. But me is the bottom of the totem pole, but just what students have been able to accomplish, it's rewarding. And I worked in the office for 17 years, and I'm pretty sure my parents still don't even know what all I do. They just know I do something with scheduling because they still talk about it a lot. So, but thank you. Is there any questions in the chat?
No questions in the chat. Thank you so much. You covered a lot, and we can hear your enthusiasm throughout the whole presentation. So I totally appreciate that. We're a small enough group, I think, that if people do have a question and you want to unmute, you certainly can take a few minutes to do that. Or you can go ahead and put it in the chat and we can read it. But before I forget, thank you very much for taking the time to share all of your knowledge with us. And like I said, we will be sending out the slides, and hopefully people will contact you if they have additional questions. Anyone
Yes.
have any questions that they want to ask or comments that you want to share?
And if you think of any later, like she said, if you want to reach out, I'm happy to share all of our documents. It's most of them are on our webpage at Tammy's, the registrar at tammycci.edu, and you're able to look at. We have a portfolio we have for departments. We have a classroom view book. We have an abundance of resources that we provide our schedule builders, our departments, deans, everyone, so that we can all be on the same page when it comes to scheduling. And I love a good manual. I love a good tell me how to do it. So if you'd like those, just feel free to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to share.
That's great. The resource sharing is huge for sure. I'm not seeing any questions or comments, so I just want to remind folks that we have one more webinar coming up with our campus best practices on Wednesday, April 23rd. We're going to be talking about proactive advising with our colleagues from SUNY Cortland. So again, thank you, Christy. Thank you, Misi, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.